Les is going to be on any second. He just discorded me.
Okay, good.
I think he was waiting for me to tell him to come on. Skipping the Reaper ad. It's been giving me too many bounce backs on issues on YouTube, so I'm going to see if I can make changes to that. What's up, Nagul? Sound check, can you hear us? Hey, Mystical. Hi. Nice for you to say. I forget what button I'm pressing. Let's press this one here.
Yeah, I need to log into chat too here.
I get a weird message from Alyssa just on Facebook. Somehow one of the con posts showed up in her feed as brand new from like last week. I'm like, no.
Okay.
That was strange. There comes Les.
Yeah.
One of those weirdities that happens, I guess. Weird things. Alright. Right. I'm doing much better. In fact, I finally am feeling myself, but I feel tired now. So, work. Thanks for asking. What's up, Les? Still connected. It's been almost like a month.
Yeah, but hopefully it's getting better.
Oh, yeah.
Hey there.
Yeah, good.
Go, Les.
How are you guys?
Doing good.
Yeah. Good too.
Yeah.
Finally feeling I've recovered from the con. So yeah. It took a couple of days, but now I was up this morning, and now I've actually done some real good work today. I posted my Ayusian zombie Ghouls to.
Oh, excellent. Kindly.
I snipped one for showing the night as a horror picture.
Oh, good. That's good. Yep.
Yeah, I saw it on Patreon. I was like, ah.
Yep. I was trying to use Midjourney, but I had some issues at the moment, so yeah, see if I can produce some scary symbols and stuff. But right now it's down for maintenance at times. So.
Mystical's asking how you're feeling, Anna, on chat. You got plenty of rest after the con.
Yeah, I've got a couple. It took a couple of days to get back to it, but today I feel like I'm resting for the first time. But it was like going to Gen Con or something. It was a couple of days of Sunday night I was mush. On Monday I was kind of just
One of the reasons why I don't even like I DM'd the first year we did it. I DM'd that. It was last year. I lose track of the years. There was an opening last second. No, I think it was the first con, and I DM'd that Sunday morning as well. And I was like, oh, you know, that was just way too much. But button here. Whoops, that's a shout out. That's a shout out, Jay. That's a shout out.
Thank you, Mystic. Yeah, it was fun. But I learned a lot of things. So I will definitely be back with more stream games. That's for sure. We're talking to my players and stuff, so we can do way more stream games. Yeah.
So I do have a new emote. I'm not sure if I'm keeping it yet. It kind of goes with the hi, and it's sup chat. So I can go back and forth on these hi and sup chats. I get a hi later. That was the bonus. You know, I got like 53 or 54 emotes now. It's insane. So yes. So just change. I like changing it up sometimes. This is just the high one. So that's new. The boomer was the other new one. Exactly. That's a lot of my sponsors to get me new ads.
Yeah.
Get me new ads.
Yeah, they need to keep up the game there. Yeah.
Nah, we'll see, Cold. I think we're gonna go a little obscure. I'm gonna try and stay away from IUs. We do enough IUs talk. But you never know. I got some.
I think there are some places with IUs in the Great Kingdom where it's good. It's worth touching on a few points in particular, some underestimated points.
I wouldn't survive this show without IUs.
Oh, Anna, you certainly will.
I need him. Yeah,
That's what this is. It's survival horror, and you get to be the final girl.
exactly. But I need him.
I tried getting some obscure ones. I think I got a real obscure one,
Cool.
which is a Forgotten Realms monster placed in a Greyhawk adventure.
Oh, cool.
Big one, yeah. It's the only time I've ever seen one in a Greyhawk adventure. Yes, and it's not a dungeon adventure. It's a published source, main adventure. Could be wrong. What's up, Patrick? Patrick, you're only 26 months sub. My gosh, seems a lot longer than that. Well, that is over 2 years.
Hi there.
What's up, Torlock?
Also going to be going into some of the origins of some of the monsters.
That I love. I love that. That's awesome. That is great. One more.
Heroes. The Codex Sinarum is filled with monsters, gods, warriors, and more on a level that will be truly legendary, told in a narrative true to Chinese history. It introduces the basics of Chinese martial arts and is complete with Qi and the many legendary abilities associated with it. Ancient complex systems of sorcery, spellcraft, and fortune-telling, even enchanted charms, are explored.
And I'm trying to set up a meeting with
Players can live out their characters'
Steven for
adventures
Friday
in
sometime.
tales
Okay.
set in popular Chinese fantasy
Late
styles
morning.
like
Yeah.
wuxia and
Hopefully
more,
we'll get
while
an
within a suitable
get an up,
historical
you know,
setting
quickie
and brought
half
to
hour
life
one.
by the
We'll
castle
see.
keeper or game master.
Can you do it fairly early? I think I have a meeting coming up at 11
Researched
on
and
Friday.
written by
11
Brian
Eastern?
Young,
Yeah,
the
no,
wildly
11 my
popular
time.
mythos
Oh yeah, it'll be well
series
before that. It'll be like
builds
11
into
Eastern.
mythos
Yep.
of the
Yeah.
ancient
Perfect.
world,
Yep.
bringing hosts
Great deal.
of gods and
Sure, don't you have a
heroes,
game
legends
tonight?
and lore, and even the monsters and foes that plague the peoples of ancient times, to the stories that you create. The
I think I
Codex
had that.
Sinarum brings ancient China to your table. Join us and pledge today.
I had that set. The playback position was in chat. That's why I cut the first 15 seconds of that off.
Lord
That's interesting.
Join the fray.
That was on me. Chuck will forgive me, right? Join the fray. I just put water on my shirt. At least it wasn't coffee.
Yeah.
Lando, your books went out yesterday. You should have them tomorrow. So, everything from the con, winning-wise, is out except for $25 Total Game gift certificates, which I just got from Chuck an hour ago. So they'll go out after the show, and we'll be all caught up on all the winnings from World Trigger Con 3. Cool, man. Tonight, instead of doing this closer to Halloween, let's do it at the beginning of the month. Why not, right? Exactly. Horrors of Greyhawk. Great. Les came up with the idea, and I'm like, well, if you're going to come up with this idea, you got to come on, too.
You get to take all the blame, Les. Well, it's a subject, as you know, Jay, near and dear to my heart and my campaign.
Yes, absolutely. I have some horror, but it's different. It's more, like, you know, Mike Disney's Overgored. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Which
actually,
is-
that touches on something I want to go into as well, which would be the degrees and types of horror.
Yes.
Horror isn't just one thing. It's a multifaceted genre. Lots of little offshoots. Lots of ways to evoke horror.
Some cold, because the problem is a lot of them aren't detailed, right? So, like the Battle of Amity Meadows is detailed. Mike did a lot of work on it and all, but I think we actually don't. Anna, didn't we do a Legends lore that said was Battles of Greyhawk? Or-
Yep.
Yeah,
I think we did back
yeah.
when.
Yeah. So, there's Gary. Gary, I heard you snuck into Dickers's game there. That's good to hear on Sunday. Glad someone else got in on that. A couple minutes early, nothing wrong with that. Four stream week, even though everyone's like, what's the fourth stream? I'll talk about that right away when we come on, because I want to remind everyone about this good.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. My God, is it evening or morning? Holy jeez. So, look at that timing. Mike Disney and crew coming in. Mike, thanks.
Perfect.
Hit you
Hey,
up with a
hey.
shout out. Hit Taryn up with a shout out. Thanks. As we went live here. So, great to see everyone. We're going to have a really cool. This is going to be a fun talk. We're going to talk about horrors of Greyhawk tonight. Also, I'm setting up the giveaway. Some classic D&D reprints. And I may add some stuff if we get a decent hype, of course. But there we go. That is all set. So, 491 fam showing a new emote, the sup chat emote. So in case you get tired of the hi remote, you can use that too. So all those emotes I got over the weekend. So thanks a lot. Quickie announcement, and that is, did I put it up there? Maybe I didn't. We have a special bonus Legends and Lore at a special time. So I want everyone to know it is Saturday morning, this Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Okay? Living Greyhawk on Wall, Creighton, Broadhurst, and crew. Okay? Creighton's never been on the show. So this is a home, thanks, Casey. We got the Living Greyhawk individuals on. That will be, yes, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. EDT. For those who won't be sticking around till the end, just wanted to let you all know. And that'll be a fun one there. But that's the big announcement. That's the bonus stream this week, outside of, our normal Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule. So Saturday morning. All right. So we were chatting and you came up with this idea. How did that happen even? I don't even, we're just in like Discord, right? BS.
Yeah, we were burned out Sunday night at the end of the sessions. And you were saying at the end of the convention, you said, I still don't know what I'm doing Wednesday night.
That was it.
And I was like, Jay, you've got a horror game coming up. It's October. Let's do a Hawktober spooktacular.
Yeah.
Do the horrors of Greyhawk.
Yeah, it was great.
And then you said, so what are you doing Wednesday night? And I was like, judging from the question, I guess I have a date.
Exactly. Because I have mine, Anna has hers, and you have yours so bizarrely obscure and where they come from that it just brings so much more to the conversation. Less so.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I got one or two really tidbits here. I'm assuming Anna does as well.
Yeah,
with those.
I have it.
But go ahead and let's talk about that defining horror that you wanted to talk about too. I mean, that's a pretty interesting topic. Yeah.
Well, first, and just to get this out of the way, and I think this is always important, know thy players. If you're running a game for someone who is particularly sensitive to certain subject matter, don't be a dick, to be blunt. Don't push your players. It's not a matter of proving, you're not in the Church of Hextor, okay? You're not trying to prove who the strongest and the the mightiest is. This is a game. This is a form of entertainment. And as mature and as sophisticated as entertainment can get, you don't want to hurt people. Always try and touch base with your players. And that's the key thing to begin with. Beyond that, what I wanted to touch on is that there are a variety of types of horror.
Yes.
A lot of us nowadays think of horror in terms of, the found footage films or maybe slasher films if we're a little older. But there's a variety of types of horror. You have your body horror, you have cosmic horror, your Lovecraftian horror, and so on. You have gothic horror, that fine tradition dating back to the Romantic era. You have all kinds of little genres and subgenres that you can play with, and that in fact Greyhawk throughout its history has borrowed from and played with, going all the way back to Kuntz and Gygax's games. So
yeah, and I think back on a lot of those early adventures, and I'm trying to think of the actual. I mean, was Ravenloft the original? There had to be stuff before that you could be determined as pure that genre, but my mind just like gets fixated on that. Was 85, wasn't it? 83 or 85? 85, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, and but I'm thinking before that. I mean, there's some great horror aspects to the games, but I'm trying pure horror back then. It's Anna. Your thoughts on like the early games with?
I never saw really
Right.
horror in early games. To me, it was too silly and too quick. Meaning, that's my first thing that I want to say. It's horrific to me, and that is the convention adventures. These kind of short, shoehorned in very quickly. That to me doesn't give horror. It's like the Tomb of Horror is not scary to me. It's like chess with
I guess that
skulls on.
Yeah.
So that type of thing doesn't to me, but I can totally get it that other people can see things like that kills your character in devious traps and stuff like that being horrific in a way. So it's very much what you and your group likes and so on. So I can get it, but I don't see that as horrifying in the sense that I like to run it or play it, so to speak. So and I think that's the cool thing. This is a much broader topic than most people realize, I think, and that I realized from the beginning. It's you have very different ways of doing it, so to speak.
I guess Tomb of Horrors, since that's the name of it, would be the first one. Yeah, but a lot of people, because of the age of it and all, say, well, it's not that. That's pretty horrible.
It's also so mechanic, so to speak, and game mechanics doesn't scare me.
Okay.
As soon as you have to rely on game mechanics to scare, then it becomes that takes the edge of it for me, so to speak.
So Daniel Boggs is saying that Arneson loved gothic horror and Blackmore was filled with it. I guess
this is one of the points that I was going to raise.
Go for it.
Is and I want to come back to Anna's point in a moment, because I think that you can pull off effective creepiness in a one-shot, but it's a matter of structure.
Okay.
It's a matter of tone. With this, what we're going back to here actually goes back to the origin of the cleric.
Okay.
In Arneson's campaign, there was a player who very much wanted to be a vampire. And thus, Lord Fang was introduced into early in D&D.
There it is. That's what he said.
And that's what I was telling. I was saying to him there that Lord Fang, the first vampire that I know of in D&D.
Wow.
And of course, what is a vampire without an opponent? And so every Dracula needing a Van Helsing, every evil needing a holiness to balance it out, the first clerics came into being.
Oh, wow. Because of the vampire. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Huh. So they made that class up to specifically go after against Undead, hence the turning.
Because remember,
Undead.
his teams in his thing, groups would play against each other.
Okay.
Right, you'd have one party sometimes playing against another, and so it's like you have this vampire, Lord Fang. He's just messing with us. What can we have? How can we balance it out? How can we do it? And yeah, Arneson was a big fan of, and as was Gygax and Kuntz, as you'll shortly learn. I hope, if you aren't already familiar, of B movies and your fright features and so on and so forth.
Nice. I found a couple of them in Ode to them, and some that don't involve the undead as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. The Tarrasque scared the crap out of us? Well, oh my gosh. I don't know. I think clay golems scare me more than the Tarrasque because clay golems damage you cannot heal. If you read, you need an 18th level cleric. How many of them are running around to heal that damage? So that's a good one. So all right, let's kick us off with something. We'll round table this. Kick us off with something that goes in this Greyhawk genre of horror.
Okay. One of the early things, and I want to pick up on this. It was something that Gygax, in that same interview that I mentioned a few weeks back with Stromberg, he was talking about what this being was, and he described the being as primordial. Right? This is something that in Gygax's cosmology predated the gods. It also was not exactly a Gygax creation. It was a Gygax elaboration, and Gygax made it his own, which is what, of course, he wants all of us to do, right?
Yep.
What you had was Therisdun, basically. Therisdun starts out as Rob Kuntz's homage to a deity from a Clark Ashton Smith story. He types up 1.5 pages. There are small hints of it throughout the early campaign, and he gives the document to Gygax, and Gygax elaborates on it and creates the entire backstory. And here we have a creature who represents pure entropy, right? He's not just a god, he's a cosmic principle. He is something that represents what happens in closed systems, right? I mean, I was discussing this the other night in chat. What happens in a closed system if you don't have entropy, right? Heat death. Everything will just go off. But this is a matter of containing entropy's flow, which is why the gods don't kill him. At least in the Gygaxian cosmology, the early Gygaxian cosmology. And now other writers have done other things with Therisdun since then. But what I love about Therisdun as a concept there, and this is an example of a big bad, right? This is something you don't want to unlock.
Right.
I'm going to give you an example of a smaller one that's still insidious in a moment. But the idea with that would be, you know, it's too easy to turn these cosmic horrors, or be they from the far realms, or be they a cosmic principle, into killable bags of hit points. They're far more effective, I think, when they're done the way that Gygax played it in Forgotten Temple, where you have these clues as to what Therisdun is and what releasing him could do. But you aren't 100% certain. And even after you finish the adventure, you're not going to be 100% certain what the ramifications of that are.
That's a good point.
So you have this idea of something that predates man, predates perhaps even man's gods. And at the same time is just so vast in its implications that, you know, it boggles the mind. Our pathetic human minds cannot comprehend such terror.
And also in G1 and G3, that temple, you never can face that entity that comes. I mean, you know, there's no combat, there's no that aspect to it, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Yeah, true.
And then on the smaller scale, I wanted to touch on something that's near and dear to me. Back in, I believe it was 1941, a famous science fiction and fantasy and horror writer named Theodore Sturgeon published a short story called It. And It was about a creature who emerges from the swamp and menaces this family. Now, within years, you had a comic book appear called The Heap, which was about, at the end of the story, by the way, you find out it's a reanimated corpse underneath all this moss and everything, struck by lightning and animated. But you have The Heap, which is a pilot who was shot down and reanimated. He appears in comic books. And then decades later, The Heap undergoes a revival. Marvel publishes an adaptation of It. And you have Swamp Thing and Man Thing appear. Created, by the way, by comic book artists and writers who were roommates at the time, but working for rival companies. And on his blog, Kuntz mentions that the Shambling Mound was inspired by such comic book monsters as the Swamp Thing, the Heap, and It, and was encountered during their Journey to the City of Gods adventure that Dave Arneson DM'd.
That's very cool. I mean, talking about one of the nastiest creatures you can come across that's not undead, right? You know,
Yeah.
that's got that. Fire doesn't do anything to it. You know, a lot of weapons don't. That's pretty cool. It can suffocate you. Yeah. Oh.
So I just thought I'd throw those two out there as sort of opening
So
salve.
that's how the Shambling Mound came about. Wow. That's pretty neat. Good ones to start off here. The thing I like about this discussion is that we're going to go all over the place. And I want to start with, I'm going to give an homage to one of your friends, Anna.
Okay.
All right. If I don't hit the wrong button. I'm going to go to this dungeon number 70.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go down here, and we're going to go to page 48 by Wolfgang Bauer.
Yes, indeed.
All right. And so you want to talk about what can you do? Like the ghoul is a great monster, right?
Mhm.
What's better? How about an entire kingdom of them?
Yeah.
And and this thing takes on a life of its own from multiple times. Kingdom of the Ghouls.
Oh yeah, it became the Empire of the Ghouls and stuff
Right,
eventually.
right.
Yep.
And there's also an Ecology of the Ghoul article, Dragon 5252. This takes place in the Crystalmus and Hellfirst Mountains, so it's near the G series actually, which means he's thinking Underdark. And this is one of my 2 Underdark discussions tonight, but he's thinking traditional Underdark area, which may even go in the D map if I recall. I don't remember 100% on that one, less if it does or not, but
yeah.
At the end, you have it's a long adventure. I ran it a while ago, but you come to the Ghoul King Dorasane, very completely nasty, -5 armor class. Just has all these abilities, has spellcasting capability. It's a really cool thing. Underdark horror, and there's a lot of horrors already in the Underdark, but why not throw a whole bunch of undead in there too, right? So. I just love it, and so much that you know me, I don't buy 5th edition books that often. But look what I have. I've had this for a while. So Empire of the Ghouls and 5e. So that dungeon, I think it's dungeon 70, has turned in. If you're a 5e player, you can go and really the expansion of that adventure here in Empire of the Ghouls. So
and also,
go ahead, Les.
While we're on that, I was wanting to mention that's from '98, isn't it?
No, it's the newer.
Which one? Empire of the Ghouls or
no, the Dungeon Magazine issue.
Oh, the Dungeon Magazine. Oh, that
Dungeon 70.
Which is what year though? 1998.
Yeah, 98. 98. It says BKM.
The reason I mentioned that is I suspected when reading it, and I've never had a chance to ask Mr. Bauer, but in '97 there was a pretty popular in horror and fantasy circles short story collection that was published. In fact, it was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for Best Fiction Collection.
Oh.
Called The Throne of Bones. And it's a series of interconnected horror fantasy stories inspired by kind of Clark Ashton Smith and Lovecraft's take on ghouls, where it's an entire kingdom of ghouls. And all their political machinations and the shenanigans they get up to, and love affairs of the ghouls, which is about as morbid and sad as it sounds like it would be. But it very much has that flavor. Bauer's Kingdom of the Ghouls and Empire of the Ghouls very much has the flavor as the author's name is Brian McNaughton.
It came out the year before, huh?
Yeah, it came out the year before, but the short stories had all been published here and there in various horror magazines and whatnot before. And I suspect that Mr. Bauer might have been influenced, and if not, then certainly it was something in the water, something unfortunate, something dark and unholy in the water at the time.
So it was memorable, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted to just give Wolfgang a nice shout out here for something that he's really gone over the years with this, taking it as his own, made it his own beyond what WotC had, in that publication, and pulled it back into his own company, which is really cool.
Exactly, and it did something that I think is so cool. Which is it added another dimension to the Underearth or Underdark.
Yes, it added. Yes, absolutely.
Because otherwise it becomes, and I love the Drow, do not get me wrong, but I also love what Sargent did with Night Below, and I love what was done by Bauer with the Ghouls, because this creates a whole other kind of vibe. You have competing and truly alien civilizations.
And I'll have one more later on from that genre as well, hopefully, if I can remember. So,
indeed.
Well, Rick, you're just at the start. Right? I just did Kingdom of the Ghouls, and Les told us the some Tharisden and Shambling Mound origination stories. So that's what you missed so far. So Anna, you want to go? You want to do one or?
Okay, yeah, we'll see. I'm toying with this horror in a more kind of general sense in a campaign, and I said earlier on that was kind of a little bit of a tease. I say mechanics don't scare me, but you can use it to scare your players with in not a direct way, meaning you don't like come up with a spell or something, but you can let the outcome of a campaign actually change the rules of the game. So when the evil side becomes more and more powerful and the party don't succeed with their missions and stuff like that, that can actually change how the rules of the game are played, so to speak. You can make various necrotic magic, for instance, and stuff more powerful, and you can make other types of magic that good aligned magic and stuff less powerful, and you can tweak things like that. You can actually change the underpinnings of the campaign, so to speak. So that way you can kind of scare like, okay, now you can't give IUs any more room, because then the actual rules of the game will change, so to speak. So it will be tougher and tougher, and it's like the version of going to another plane or something where your powers are diminished and the powers of the enemy are increased or enhanced. So I think that is something you can play with, but don't tell the players right away, meaning let them cast a spell and then realize that the damn enemy seems to save way more often than they used to, so to speak, and stuff like that. So I think this also goes hand in hand with another of effect that I think, at least from my perspective, is kind of needed in order to run a successful horror game. The players need to be invested in both the characters and the story. And before then, that's why I think one shots and really quick, you can't rush horror, in my opinion. You need to, it's something that ripens like a wine or something. Or it grows slowly, and you need to incubate it over time, and it needs to kind of fester. And it's something you should not tell the players. The players need to figure it out themselves. That's when it becomes scary. And I've pulled it off a few times in my career. One was in this campaign when we had a dream sequence against Ragatha. That was kind of horror in a way, when the players figured out that this is so screwed, it must be something wrong with this. and it didn't, it was kind of, yeah, it was. So that was one of the few times I really pulled off something horrific, so to speak. And now the players is like, no, we don't go, our characters don't go to bed. We never sleep, so to speak, because I kind of threaten them with nightmares can be real. And someone asks, what happens if my character die in sleep? Well, we haven't figured that out. That's something to figure out for a future session.
It sounds like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, so that was something. So meaning, and that's so you can use game mechanics in different ways, and horror doesn't need to be a monster you can fight. It can be more like a principle, and it can be underlying structure of the campaign that can be scary, so to speak. And that's something that you don't tell the players. The players have to figure it out over time, stuff like that.
Cool. It's a good point. So, because, well, in 2 weeks I got to figure out how to do the horror aspect in a one shot, Anna. But then again, but then again, I have my disease.
But you're better at stuff like that than I am, so to speak. You're way more skilled at one shots than I am. So you can do a much better job at that department than I can. So yeah.
And I was going to suggest that in one shots, if you have sufficient time, and if you pace it, generally, a structure that works for horror, I find, and you'll find it repeated throughout various media, be it video games or horror films or novels. I always call it, just for sake of convenience, the Godzilla arc. And let me explain what I mean to you by the Godzilla arc. You have an inciting incident. In other words, some event happened. A volcano erupted, a nuke went off, something has changed. There was a flash of light above a section of the kingdom. whatever. And then slowly, after the inciting incident, you have that happens before, right before the game. What you have is then harbingers. You have little things that wind up happening. An entire community goes missing. Miners begin disappearing. Something is disrupted in the natural order. And the players, as they delve deeper and deeper into trying to uncover this mystery, the stakes raise for the player characters, right? In other words, as they progress, it becomes increasingly dangerous until suddenly you get the reveal of the beast or an aspect of the beast. So you have some kind of inciting incident, something that triggers the chain of events. Then you have a series of micro events or micro encounters. A great example would be Stephen King uses this in The Stand, and it's in 28 Days Later, the early zombie film as well. The idea that you're traveling through a tunnel. This is a great example of a harbinger encounter. You're traveling through a tunnel, and then you hear movement, and it's rats. But it's not only just a handful of rats, it's a whole horde of rats, and they're running from something. And already your player's hair should be standing up on their, what would make this many rats run?
Yeah.
They should already be on their guard. And then you have something happen, right? And you can just progress from there, if you see what I mean, depending on the type of horror that you're facing, whether it's something huge or something that's like defeatable. In other words, is it something you have to seal off from this reality, or is it something you have to kill? Regardless of what it is, you slowly ramp up the tension through the encounters and raise the stakes for the players, and if possible, put someone or something that the players care deeply about in danger. They have a quest to find their lost father. They have a quest to find some missing villagers. Something where there's a stake.
Yeah, because it's got to be, there's got to be some kind of reason or point to it.
And in a one shot, you don't. And the other thing is always in a one shot, keep it ratcheted up. Because you've only got so much time. In a campaign, you can give it time to breathe and give them time to relax. In a one shot, you don't want them to relax.
Right. You want
you want the tension to mount.
Absolutely.
It's kind of again the difference, and a good example I think would be a Call of Cthulhu one shot versus a Call of Cthulhu campaign, right? In a one shot, you have so many minutes to get to the end game. In the campaign, the players can explore this avenue, explore that avenue, and so on. And that's where I draw the line, by the way, is that I do think that on the whole, whatever is the end goal of a horror adventure in Greyhawk, I'm thinking here of Conan, where Conan would come up against cosmic horrors periodically, or this horrific being, or giant lizard, or whatever it is, or lich. And ditto Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. But they always had an out. They always could get away. They always could defeat the thing, or at least, if not defeat it, seal it away for someone else to deal with later.
That's a good point, Les.
Yeah, that's the difference between Lovecraft on the one hand and say Robert E. Howard and Fritz Lieber and the rest of them on the other, right? Is that in Lovecraft you're going to go nuts or put a bullet through your head. In the sword and sorcery narrative, the hero has the opportunity to maybe not defeat it, but put it away for someone else to have to mess with later. Which, by the way, brings me to one last monster I wanted to mention: the origin of the Ramaraz.
Oh,
I was telling you about the other night, Jay.
Yeah.
that thing is.
And I've mentioned to Anna before. The Ramaraz was originally from a Conan story. It was from Lair of the Snow Worm, I believe, by Elsbreg de Camp and Lynn Carter, one of the Conan pastiche stories. And it was done as a Marvel comic in a Savage Sword of Conan. It was adapted in an early issue of that.
Huh.
And the Ramaraz in the story is called the Ramora, and it is in fact a snow worm type creature. And Conan is riding in the mountains, and he's got his woman with him, and he mentions, and she keeps mentioning this mythical beast that's up in the mountains. And of course, Conan being Conan, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. We're riding through here. Well, and then the campsite is attacked at night, and his woman and the horse are taken away. And he goes exploring, and he finds her and the horse, or what's left of them, because they've been snacked on. And the cold is freezing their bodies. and he explores a little further, and he finds the frozen remnants of the beast's previous snacks. And then he encounters the creature itself, which is an enormous multi-legged worm with horrible teeth that emerges from the ice and snow and so forth, and lives up in the mountains. So it was a nice little, exactly. That would be the.
Are they in the Conan stories? Are they as big as they have them in D&D? I mean,
Yeah.
that thing's 24 feet long. Or
Yeah, it's described as, I think, approximately. It would be about 20 feet long in the story, so about the same size.
Did it do the same fire damage, or was it a cold dwelling monster?
It was a cold dwelling.
Okay, yeah,
beastie.
Really an interesting creature. I remember talking about shock value. You'd be walking right on top of it in G2 by accident. Yeah. Ugh.
And Steve, that's one of the other things is that a lot of these things that we take for granted, I think, either as just monster encounters or just, weird beasties. Here's the thing, that keep in mind the world that your players live in, right? And look at the monster frequencies too, would be another key, I think. Very rare for the Remorhaz.
Oh, it has to be, yeah.
But the Remorhaz is an interesting monster. I mean, we talked about it a little bit less. That the way I would make it scary is not by so much the stats; it's the hunting technique.
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah, I would make it a monster that can walk on snow because it has a lot of feet. It can displace the weight really well. So he will only hunt in deep snow. He can either burrow through snow, and he can also walk on snow unhindered, so to speak.
And that's why it attacks the camp the way that it does in the story.
Exactly. So it will only be out in the summer. It will be hibernate. It will be the opposite. In the winter, he will go and hunt things in the winter. So when the adventurers are out in the winter in the deep snow and they can barely move around, that's when the Remorhaz would strike.
What I was kind of wanting to emphasize there is, you're right. It isn't the statistics. Here's what's scary. Again, what I mentioned about having the inciting incident and the harbingers. In this case, it would be the inciting incident would be, they're going through the mountains and Conan's female companion and horse go missing. Conan proceeds to look for them, and the harbinger in this case would be as he starts finding piles of bodies that were the previous snack. And it mentions that Conan is feeling this the preternatural fear that his kind always face. He steels himself against the preternatural fear that his race always feels when encountering the unknown and the supernatural, right? So he steels himself up. And that'll be the thing is, like any kind of monster, a lot of these monsters that we take for granted, they can be made scary. You just have to think about the fact that maybe that your characters in character, don't necessarily know what these things are, and tracking them and finding what they've left behind in their wake can be pretty horrifying.
And also use them in the right environment. I can clearly see the Remorhaz out in the boreal forest when you miles out in nowhere, so to speak. That's when it will strike.
Yeah,
when it can hunt you down over a day or two, and it can take one after the other and take munches and whatnot. So, and if you use spells, it will simply disappear, vanish, and come back again after a little bit when it healed up and stuff. So it can track you for a long time and it could probably sniff very well in snow too, and it's a snow hunter, so to speak, and especially one within vegetation, not out in the open. It will be one that will do it within snow-laden forest, so to speak, and also when it's really a lot of snow, that's when he comes out in the open and hunts. In the summer, it will be as a disadvantage because he will not be able to get. It's not faster than the prey in summer. He can't hunt stuff in the summer, but in dead winter, that's when it comes. When it gets cold and lots of snow.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah,
it really is. So I'm gonna change it up here. I think Jim Ward said to me that he said to Gary Gygax, "You can't put these pictures in the Fiend Folio. You're going to scare the shit out of kids."
Oh, I know the pictures you're talking about. I love those as a kid. I loved them.
Yeah, well, all right. So you want to? I normally don't go vampire realm, but this is the Penanggalan, which is that Romanian? What European
or something?
No, the Penanggalan is in fact not that there is a whole cycle of Asian. It's in the case of the pangolin proper. It's from Malaysia.
Okay, it's Malaysian. Okay.
But there are other, for example, parts of Indonesia. They have their
Okay.
own versions of that creature. It's a pretty widespread throughout that section of Asia's creature. And I've used a pangolin before to great effect.
Yeah, I mean, because they can be by day. They can go out in the day, if I recall. They're not immune to. They don't have sun issues.
And you always have that distinct smell of vinegar.
Yes, which will give it away for smart players. So you have to mask it somehow. But what a disgusting, horrific, horrifying creature. Because if you witness the separation, you can become feeble-minded, and it's just really over the top. And yes, the wonders of the Fiend Folio back in the day, the awful things that they put, so if a ray suddenly strikes the creature's head and gut when they're detached, they become paralyzed. Okay, so they got to be put together. So I use them. What's that?
Sorry, go on.
No, go for it.
I was going to mention that one of the ways that I used them and played them up was because you do have similar creatures also in Eastern European folklore and mythology. The detachable head that goes out searching for sustenance.
Yeah.
But what I did in this case was I incorporated something from some of the folk tales where they specifically are seeking out the mothers of newborns and pregnant women.
Oh, that is horrible.
And yeah, that's actually how the creature operates in its own mythology. And so I had one of the characters. They didn't know what it was, but there was some disappearances, and there were rumors. Like it occurred to them one of the player characters, that when she was a child, she had heard this story about how you didn't want to go out at night alone as a little kid because the monster will get you.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that creeped the hell out of the player. And when they finally encountered the thing and the head came off, the players weren't the only ones who had to roll against passing out, right?
That's awesome.
Or dying on the spot. So the player characters, the players kind of were a bit.
Wanted to throw it out there because when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. It says female vampire type undead. But really, yes and no. So it's its own monster in its own right. I guess they just had to classify it that. It's really in its own
Well,
right.
there was some debate about that. Actually, this ties into another great creature, the Eye of Fear and Flame.
Yeah,
right.
That's
I love that one.
It's
a great one.
I'm sure that Gary will be cringing at this because the big bad or big bads in my Spine Castle one shot were actually the reanimated eyes of an Eye of Fear and Flame.
Oh, okay. So it was almost like a demi-lich version of it.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Something had an entity of chaos had been because of course these things, according to the what's written, they're sent to either test beings of law or to corrupt them, depending on how you look at it. And in this case, who's controlling Spine Castle? The Hextorians.
Yeah.
And who had the followers of Hieronius. The idea that you would have these lawful presences. And in the backstory, there was this Aerde hero who managed to pin it to this plane and strike it down. But its eyes went missing, and then a Cyclops found it and took it back to some Cyclops skin who began worshipping it until it reanimated, and then told them to find the other eye, and then to find vessels for the eyes.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, that's a good example to me of that was a debate that Don Turnbull and Ed Greenwood wound up having, where Greenwood was saying it should be turned as undead, and Turnbull said, no, I don't think the designer intended for it to be undead. And then later editions made it undead and then made it not undead again.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did they bounce back and forth?
Yeah, I tend towards the not undead.
But just to spook people, looks like undead.
Yeah, it's a creature of chaos, right?
Yeah.
Meant to destroy those who are lawful, regardless of whether it's neutral, good, or evil.
I had an Eye of Fear Flame turn tempted a player character who always was seeking power, and he turned himself into a shade. That's what the Eye of Fear Flame got him to do. So, yep. Tempt. That's a good one. Both interesting there. So Anna, you're up.
I was thinking the religious symbols. I was thinking how do they in the campaign? How do IUs and others cults and various people who want to scare inhabitants and stuff, meaning how do they scare off the general population or kind of keep them in track? So I was thinking we have what in this book there is a symbol, there is like undead religion, and there is a symbol of you guys
bring
have
it up.
seen
What
this.
page?
Yeah, see, yeah, it's in, hang on a second here. It's a symbol of Nearul. It's on Undead Society, religion.
Because
It's on page 17.
okay.
There's a symbol of Nearul that is a skull and a scythe that
Yeah.
is mounted on a pole. And not that one. It's on page.
Yeah.
There you go. That one. Yeah. So I was thinking that to me doesn't look like the symbol that a cleric or a cultist or something have around their neck. Meaning that's something that is staked down in the that stands in the field, or something that sits outside in order to scare people. So I can sense that in a way, in my take is that evil deities can get that power either from worshippers or people simply fearing them. And by planting these devices like this out in the field somewhere outside a village of innocent, wonderful, cute little farmers, they can that goes about their business, and they find it in the morning and they found a symbol like that. That is a way of establishing power and getting them scared. And you can also imagine put some cool little magic on top of it, and you have something that could be really interesting, and also something you can use against low level players, because we don't it's different if you want to use horror against really high level players, but a low level players, you can put something like that in, and you can put some cool little magic that is not that powerful, and it could scare the bejesus out of you. You can even, if you're smart, you can even surround the whole village with one every 30 feet or so, and have them so they're basically fenced in, a bit like it was in the Call of Cthulhu adventure we had. You can make the fantasy D&D version of this, so the characters can brave and run through it with the risk of losing their lives, so to speak. So you can you can play with, you can use the game mechanics in that sense to kind of invent cool little things and turn them into, make monster stats for them, so to speak, and make them as powerful as less powerful as you need. I'm toying with how I want Doraka's defenses to be, meaning, and I want to have like a multi-layered. Why isn't Union armies and others simply overrun Molag, for instance, or other places? How do a place like Molag defend themselves? And that's something I'm working with right now to figure out, okay, if you have an evil fantasy settlement like that, of that scale, so to speak, meaning a major base, how do you defend that against thousands, tens of thousands of Freudian knights and God knows what other cool stuff they come with them, so to speak, from dragons to hippogriffs to whatever, celestials of various kinds and stuff? How do a place like Molech still exist? And so there I want to invent a lot of horrific things. I have one of the spells that I use in spells is the Wall of Pain, which is kind of a spell that is actually meant to be a battlefield deterrent, so to speak. It's something that Ayusian troops use in order to soften up the enemy, and it basically renders enemies half helpless. When you're caught in one, you can either run back where you come from, that's usually the best option, or you can stay put and try to survive, or you can run towards the enemy, and that's what Ayusians want. And if you kind of hesitate with, and it's a double save, so to speak. So if you fail one of the saves or so, you end up paralyzed for a round, and that's when they have undeads that they run in to clobber you to death with, so to speak. So it's kind of a combination to soften up the weaker ones so they don't have to deal with weak troops. So I tried to invent a whole menagerie of Ayusian stuff like that from various battle standards with screaming skull functions and all sorts of nastiness like that. And I think make a combination of all that can be really horrifying. From the little stake you put outside the village for low-level characters, up to siege weapons that are specially prepped to wipe out really high-level targets and stuff like that. So you can go the whole range of stuff that you can make a game horrific from low level to high level.
So, speaking of the siege weapons, I don't know if this is horrific or not, but we've we've been recently, we've had, instead of putting other people, throwing the heads in like they do in, they catapult troll pieces in.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you exactly. That's
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
Way to demoralize the enemy.
Yeah. And I use breeding special trolls just for that purpose.
Yeah.
Put them in the cage and then fling them to the enemy. Exactly. Yep.
What's up, Chuck? Good one.
This actually what Anna was saying also reminds me of something that I do in my campaign, and I was thinking about it during your discussion of the Horn Society. This is one example. Okay. There's a type of horror that I really like. Human beings have a desire to impose order on things and see connections where they aren't necessarily there. So you have a type of horror where it becomes extreme apophenia, extreme pattern recognition. You start seeing connections between things that aren't there, right? And there are some beings who will take advantage of that. For example, in my version of the Horn Society, it derives from ancient Flan stuff, but it also was incorporated or was co-opted by diabolism, right? Devil worshipping figures. You have these factions within it, but here's the key thing. One of the reasons that it could survive was that its agents had researched thoroughly other local customs and things. So when the Horn Society flees, its remnants can set up shop under the guise of other local horrors and folkloric things to scare the bejesus out of people if they need to, or to set themselves up as, connected to the Great Hunt or whatever thing is going through the area. So the players might ultimately wind up thinking that they're looking at one thing, and then it's another thing, and then something much bigger, right? And then after a while, you wind up with, Anna, I think you were saying you always, and Jay, you were saying you always want everything to go one level higher than the players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
planning the way you plan your world building should go one layer deeper than what your players are interested in.
And here's what I love doing to my players, though. I love them finding that one level deeper, getting settled on the one level deeper, and then either pulling the rug out from under them, or better yet, setting fire to the room and letting them find out that they're on a rug of smothering. And that there is, in fact, another deeper layer. So that slowly, bit by bit, it keeps going, and they start seeing patterns where there aren't patterns, which I think reflects the idea that if you were to live and pursue these kinds of things too long, you would start getting paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have. Some paranoid. We all have some paranoid players, yes.
Yeah, you wind up executing the prisoners because you're not sure, wait, they're in a cage. How do we know they're not really doppelgangers? How do we really know blah, blah, blah? And they have to, they start becoming, it's almost like, you don't even need to make any kind of mechanic for madness. The players themselves start manifesting it through their characters. As they become increasingly paranoid or desperate. Mimics are a great example. Doppelgangers
Trappers.
and pseudo-doppelgangers. Trappers. I mean, there's an entire subset of monsters. And a lot of this goes back to, again, I would argue, your classical fairy tales and folklore about doppelganger figures, all the way through stuff like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and similar kinds of film and literature.
That creeped me out.
Yeah.
That movie.
And that relates to a form I had been mentioning, and Icarus actually touched on earlier, which would be parasites.
Mm-hmm.
Things that can hijack your body.
Well, yes, let's talk about that, Les. Why not?
Oh, let's
talk about that. Because, and Icarus mentioned this, we got to go. The Sons of Caius are just disgusting. You want to talk about something taking over your body? I mean, these things can TPK a party real quick. And I am not sure. I don't know if you know. when did this get Greyhawk taken? Right, because it's in Fiend Folio, which means it came from White Dwarf somewhere,
Yeah.
and then Caius got converted into a Vecna-like deity.
Is he an
almost.
original White Plume Mountain? Is Caius involved in that
No.
one? No. Then Age of Worms.
But Age of
definitely.
Worms is 3rd edition in the 2000s.
Oh yeah. But I mean, do we have any earlier examples?
Well, this is from
of
1981. This book.
Oh yeah, but in the book. But I mean, we don't have any Greyhawk adventure-specific mentions of Caius much before.
They are in something I think I'm going to show soon.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Another adventure too, but
Yeah.
I don't know, like, when did that official, just like the Dracolich and Dragotha got turned into Dracolich eventually. When did that happen? So
I'm going to give you an idea of when I believe it happened. I believe it happened, unless I am mistaken, in 1992.
Okay.
Specifically in Rary the Traitor.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were the Sons of Caius. I think there's somewhere in Sulm. I want to say it was Unag where they were supposed to be located. The majority of them. And then from that, from the Ashes as well, mentions the Amadeo. So those would be the two sources that started introducing him into.
So you think it's Rary the Traitor's the first time? Because I don't.
From the Ashes and Rary the Traitor are,
okay.
I think, the first time he was brought into Greyhawk.
Okay.
Officially. And then, of course, you have him. He comes up in relation to the Wormcrawl Fisher in I Use the Evil by Sargent. So. And by that point, it was pretty well solidified.
Yeah, so we always use these as they were just wandering around in Greyhawk. We couldn't figure it out, for no reason, right? It's just that they were so horrifying. I had a lot. I had them actually at one point later on. I put them in the Defiled Glades. I think this is still pre, that part of the evil artifact that created that area, and that they, that's a spot where they'd come from. Pre-Age of Worms as well, because there wasn't really much of a discussion on what they, where they came from. But I found them completely horrifying. So
I'm so glad that Eric Mona did Age of Worms that way, because it's such a good material for my Shieldlands campaign's future.
Yep. So that was one.
Oh, and I was going to mention in relations, because we don't want to leave Caius alone, do we?
Okay.
No, he's too juicy in this sense. Yeah.
In many ways, he's too juicy.
Yep.
But Open Grave, the 4th edition book, which I was talking to you about, Jay.
Yeah, that's the one I did not get to getting, because I was afraid if I got a 4th edition book, my hands would melt. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Liz.
No, don't kid. As I've said before, there's some interesting little bits and pieces of lore in that, but in that you get,
has there's some cool stuff hidden in 4E. Yep.
There's some useful stuff. It's in theory applicable to the Nentir Vale thing, but a lot of it's easily importable into Greyhawk, in no small part because of who the authors of this book are. But you have the Wormspawn Praetorian, which is cast-off maggots and vermin that have formed a warrior with unflinching devotion to their creator, and have an ever-shifting carapace of gleaming chitin fragments, lashing out at foes with enormous clacking mandibles.
So, wow, okay. So it's basically a creature made of worms and bugs and insects
that were cast off from the other spawn of Caius. Yeah,
that's interesting, because that's a theme through demonic things a lot. There was a Buffy episode that had one.
Yep.
And even in the movie Constantine, right? He fights one. Which is pretty cool. So.
I was going to mention, just to assuage your fears somewhat, the lead designer on Open Grave is Bruce Cordell. So.
Okay, cool. Bruce is awesome. So
it also, speaking of also, before we get there, it also has a lot of cool stuff in it. I'll just throw this out there so that I don't have to cover it again later. It has some really neat stuff involving Vecna, and including what happens to those followers of Vecna who wind up betraying his secrets. They become a pretty horrific shell of their former selves. forced to execute his will, basically as his little henchman. You have all kinds of other neat little spin-offs from all the great undead are covered in that book, with some new lore that you can take or leave, and some new monsters that I would certainly advise adapting if possible. You have the aspect of Vecna, the master enigma of Vecna, and the enigma of Vecna are what become of his traitors. And you have, of course, Cass and some knights who try to follow in Cass's footsteps. And a Sararak, some more on a Sararak in there. So worth digging into.
In that, that's good to know that there is some nice tidbits in that 4E era. You just gotta know where to look and dig.
There's some good nit picks in the 4E. Even if you don't like the rules, there's some lore stuff in there that are cool.
Very cool.
A little lot of planner stuff that was interesting in 4E, I think.
Yeah.
Feywild and Shadowfell and stuff like that you can, if you don't take the details, at least the names are in themselves interesting. So they developed some new concept in 4E that I liked.
Let's see here. Okay, so Anna, do you want to bring up something?
Now it's starting to get thin here.
Well, it's okay.
I'm toying with the meaning how much doom and gloom can the campaign take, so to speak. That's one of the things. Meaning I'm Scandinavian and we are full of doom and gloom and stuff like that. Anyone who watched a Icelandic movie or a Swedish
crime
or Norwegian
dramas,
crime dramas or something like that realize where I come from, so to speak. So I'm sometimes afraid that I'm overwhelming my players with doom, gloom, and the I don't want the world to go under, but I want the players to almost feel like it is, so to speak, without pinpointing where it comes from, so to speak. So I'm kind of I'm just worried sometimes that I'm too gloomy. So in that sense, I was wondering, can you have too much horror? Is it like ketchup? It becomes too much blood on the thing, and then it defeats the purpose, or that was one of the, at least the thing that came to the top of my head, so to speak.
Well, yeah.
Meaning that there is a right amount, which can vary from game group to situation and the mood around the table, etc. But I'm sure you can overdo it, so to speak. And
you can. I think you can. And
Yeah.
I think a little here and there dabs is a good thing, where you know, or if they don't see it coming. Yeah. Your thoughts on that, Les?
I agree. I think there should always be the potential. Now, in terms of discussing it, in terms of throwing it out there as an idea to bounce off of, I'm all for it. Let me just point that out. I think that, because the whole point is that the darkness and the threat of the darkness has to be out there for good or balance to triumph, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be concerned about going too dark.
Good. That's kind of assures me.
Well, I think that's what Sargent was attempting to do from the ashes, was go too dark.
Yeah, I guess the maybe the orders from TSR was that rip it up, and we need to have a place where it's more scary and more gloomy and stuff. So
well, I think also though he mentioned, and this is part of my philosophy on it as well. I want to say it's in IU's, it might be in Ivid. He mentions that it is a time for heroes. Meaning that things have gotten dark.
Yeah.
And
right,
it's time for you to rise up and, definitely not. In other words, you could play evil characters, but why would you want to? They right now have the upper hand, at least in that era.
Yeah.
When you have the opportunity to be a hero and to carve the world and make a difference. And I think that's important too.
Okay. Good point.
You don't want evil to be wimpy. You don't want it to completely win, and I think it's noticeable that he didn't create a completely grimdark thing where the ultimate victory of evil is ensured, or evil has already won.
Yeah, I like the idea of regional evil. I mean, the world is large, so meaning that there should be a shire somewhere where everything is nice and quiet, and you can kind of go by but it's that kind of gradual. You should kind of approach danger, and it should get worse and worse and worse. So and there should be areas where no paladin would ever tread, so to speak, like Doraka or something like that. Even Molag might be off limits a bit, more than off limits.
Yeah, music can be a good enhancer. Just gotta make
That's
sure
a
you use
good
the
idea.
Absolutely.
gotta make sure you use
Yep.
the right ones, or you're getting copyright banged on Twitch and YouTube.
Oh yeah,
so,
but if you run your own games at home, then
yeah,
you
absolutely.
don't need to.
Definitely. Yeah.
But then we have these music
Big
role-playing game music things like Sirenscape and Battle Bards and not what they're called, these that where you can that are meant for it, and they allow streaming. You can stream there. You can get an account and use them, so to speak, and they have music and sound effects and stuff. So there are certain effects, but on the other hand, that is another layer of complexity you have to juggle while you're running your game, which might be offsetting to some or really interesting to others. So yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, Jay. Go on.
No. Go ahead, Les.
No, I
Go
insist. I insist. Actually, give me a chance to do something.
Okay, so with this discussion on creating an ambiance, I mean that it can be difficult. I mean, that could be a very difficult thing to create a horror ambiance when you're DMing, especially if you get a group that if you get a group that's transient or does not like to pay attention much, and you're playing with your friend. It's tough. It's tough to do sometimes, and that's why sometimes a little foreshadowing it helps. I like throwing in a little foreshadowing piece here and there, coming across a dead
and bring
dead
your
animal
players out
yeah.
into nowhere. The best horrifying game we've had two back in Sweden. One was in a small cabin up on the Norwegian border, way like 5-10 miles into nowhere, about 5 miles into nowhere. We had to walk for like 2 hours to get there, and in the meantime, I had some colleagues of mine who put blood on the trail and played out some scenes on the way. So we found some dead entrails and stuff like that. That was part of the story. So we kind of played part of the story, and then we got there, set up camp, and started playing, and everyone knew, but we were way out in the wilderness. That added to it. There was no electricity, so we had to play in candlelight and flashlights and stuff. So that added to it, and we knew that we had to sleep in that cabin overnight, so to speak, and we started in the evening and we played almost until dawn. So that was kind of, and it was kind of a little bit chilly and windy and stuff. And the other one was we played in a real castle in the basement. That was kind of awesome too. And so it was real, like stone, and if you scream you could hear the echo and stuff. So that was the audio, or how the ambience was audio wise was kind of completely different from sitting in a normal house.
Les, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I was gonna say, if you don't mind going a little bit grim.
Well, I'm gonna go grim. Let me go first here with an item. That's horror. They used to horror, and I think I completely disagree with it. The use of it, and I've said this 100 times. There's two instances: the head of the Sea of Medesia, the torture of endless delights, and then what they do with prisoners in what's Dorka. They put rings of regeneration on them, and then they torture people, right, and rip them apart or whatever. And I just find that so off-putting that you could use a great item like regeneration as a torture device. So I will stop with that. First of all, I'm not into the complete gore aspect of the Greyhawk end, but I just think that is just such a misuse of an item. So I don't allow it in my game. I know, Gary. I know you're a fan of it, but I'm not. Yeah, see, I know you did that to a PC. You put them against the freaking. You put them up on the what do you call it, on the tower, right, and hung them from the tower. Yeah. I have a distaste for using magic items from that. Yeah, hung them from the wall. So, all right, I'll move on. That's horror.
So. Yeah, but I can definitely thematically see that as a way of using an artifact or like a magic item of good for evil. I can lot of see. It's like one of the things that we've read from the Gord book is that Ayu's throne is made up of bones of Furundian paladins that he killed, and that is to me kind of cool.
That's
That-
cool,
that-
but they're not regenerating constantly and
Well,
turning into.
you can imagine
Yeah.
that will be kind of cool if the yeah. Now we're not going to go into gory details because then we might get banned on Twitch. But there are interesting possibilities. Let me say that in a theme like that, so you can take that to new heights if you want to. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right, Les, what do you got?
I was going to throw out a few things. Back in Dungeon 106.
That's the multi-paladin one, isn't it? Oh, it's Dungeon. No, that's Dragon 106. Dungeon 106.
Yeah. You had the let me pull down here and make sure that I've got everything.
I can probably bring that up too if I have it in my machine.
I think it's 106.
106.
I might be mistaken.
Okay.
No, my bad. It is 106. It's Sean Reynolds' wonderful Enchiridion of the Fiend Sage column in that Beasts of the Scarlet Brotherhood. One of the creatures that I'm particularly fond of that because it has applications. I said I didn't really want to go too much into regions that are overexposed and it's on the tin, like for example the stuff in EUs or in Ivid. But this bears mentioning. You have the Yeshir.
What page are you on? Do you have a page?
It's in the Living Greyhawk journal.
Oh, okay. I'm in Dungeon
for 106 in Dungeon 106.
Okay.
Like back in those issues, if you're looking at them online, that some of the depending on the PDF you're looking at, it might not have the LGJ material in it.
Yeah, I don't think this one does. Oh, it yeah. Okay.
But the Yeshir is also known as the Sewell Hatchling Hound.
What?
Now the reason it's called the Sewell Hatchling Hound is according to the article, in the late stages of the Imperium, halfling flesh was considered a delicacy by some Sewell nobles.
Found it.
And the Yeshir was used basically to burrow down and dig up halfling homes.
I found it. Oh.
And bring them up. And as the Sewell spread throughout the Flanaess, they brought some Yeshir with them. Some of them, the most clear-blooded ones, are of course in the among the Scarlet Brotherhood. But you do have Aerdi lords who use them when going out, hunting for quote-unquote sport. And I think it remains you can gather what kind of sport we're talking about.
How did this miss? I'd never heard of this, and now
that's
pretty disturbing. That's pretty disturbing, Les. Oh my god!
But this is the horrors of Greyhawk.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
this is good. Fine. Yep.
Now, did Paul Luby or Stuart Kerrigan write this thing up?
This would be Sean Reynolds.
Oh, Sean Reynolds did this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I found that. That's pretty disgusting, man. Wow. Yes, sure. Halfling hound, but it's really not a halfling hound. It's a halfling hunter hound.
Yeah, exactly.
Good find. Wow.
If you go through, they have some other nice little beasties in that article too. They're all of which are equally horrifying and emblematic, I think, of the decadence of the late Imperium.
Oh my gosh.
And of the Brotherhood.
That is, yeah. Has anyone ever used these in game?
Yes.
I saw it in chat. Wow. Cronenberg film. Yeah, I'd say so. My, oh my. Yeah. Some things that, and they never appear in any other publication. It's in Living Greyhawk Journal, but they don't appear in a future monster manual or anything like that. So, oh, wow. Huh.
Which is the other reason I love using them is that most of my players, even those conversant with 3.5 or 3.0 or older, they don't know these creatures. So it's fun to have them in the back pocket as a.
Good to see you, Brandon.
Particularly if some of the players are playing halflings, that's most entertaining.
I'll say I may have to throw this. I might have to throw one of these out there not this Saturday because I don't have a game this Saturday, but I might have to throw one out there in the very near future.
And Icarus says he thinks they appeared in a Duchy of Ernst Living Greyhawk mod.
Really? Okay.
Okay.
Wow. That's a good one.
Something interesting comes from Living Greyhawk. Yep.
Something pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, that entire series of articles by Reynolds, I highly recommend. It has all kinds of neat little, usually quite horrific beasts, since the Fiend Sage is noting them and making comment on them.
So, I have, and I don't know if I'm wrong. You guys can correct me in chat because you will. I know you will blast me, but I think this monster that's in a monster. It's really nasty. It's in this Return of the Ape by Roger Moore. It's actually a Forgotten Realms monster ported into Greyhawk. Okay, does anyone know which one I'm talking about? Probably not, but let me
No?
go down here. Is there anything that you can think of as worse than a demonic spider? It's really disgusting. The Bebolith.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Bebeliths, they are wonderful. They
Right.
are a bit abyssal. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
and here's
love
a
them.
picture of it.
Abyssal spiders. They are
I
fantastic.
know it's
Yeah.
killed at least one player in our party.
Oh, they are
Yeah,
fantastic.
and look,
Yep.
right below that, Sons of Caius. This is the first time I remember Sons of Caius being in a published adventure. It's right here as well, and that's what I wanted to talk about. But yeah, so these things, I think these aren't retrievers. The retriever's a little bit of a different one that can like pull you.
Bebelith are the regular predators in the abyss that goes around eating things, and yeah.
I think the Bibboleth, if I'm not mistaken, let me double check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they originated, believe it or not, in Planescape.
Oh, did they?
Oh, okay. No, not
I'm
surprised.
looking at now at a monster index, and I'm seeing them 1991 Monstrous Compendium Planescape Outer Planes Appendix.
Wow. Okay. Did not know that they originally came from there. So, but I remember this being such a horrific creature. I think this is in Jalarzi's Keep. That this thing is in there, and it's just nasty stat wise, nasty abilities, and just you come across webs. You're like, oh, spiders. No, not a giant spider. Not even it's just worse, way worse. And I remember the shock of this character. So
this reminds me of something, a long-term project I have in that I'm working on when I get passionate about it, and this discussion really makes it passionate. It's the ecology of the abyss.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, with everything from what is abyssal plant life, animal life, dirt, and stuff like that. Meaning, how is it actually functioning? And I come up with some cool things. And Bebeliths play a vital part in the ecosystem, so to speak. They are kind of the scavengers and the ones going around hunting and keeping things going, so to speak. So it's kind of, yeah, and also how the plans work and how how it actually comes to be, because I love biology and how the environment on planet Earth works. So I'm kind of, okay, so if you come to the abyss, what the heck, how is it functioning, so to speak? You don't have light and stuff, so you have other things. They and the plant life seek life, so to speak. They can sense life, and that's what they are seeking, so to speak. So they always strive to go towards life, so to speak. So that's, instead of light, they always seek life, and they can grow from it, stuff. So
okay.
So if you're a new kind of a newly arrived and you turn into one of these little abyssal worms that are a newbie, you have to fight really hard to stay away, because otherwise things will eat you, because you are their food, so to speak. So everything is kind of predatory in a sense.
I didn't even realize research assistants on this was Eric Mona and Steve Wilson.
Cool.
Never knew that.
Yeah, awesome.
So for Roger Moore's design.
I was also, a lot of this kind of also reminds me, since we're speaking of things pertaining to the planes. The other thing I wanted to mention was, and I have a suspicion it's in a direction Gygax would have gone had he persisted with Greyhawk. In two of the short stories in Knight Errant, it touches on devils, which of course there's a lot of attention in Greyhawk on demons, and justifiably so. But in there are two short stories, one of which deals with, among other plot elements, a priest of Asmodeus, and the other short story. Well, I'll come back to that. The short story with the Asmodeus cult and its leader is called Cat or Pigeon. But there's another one called Cats versus Rats, right? Because of obviously Gord's connection to Rex Fellis, etc. The Cat Lord. But in this case, you have, and it's a really neat idea, you have an imp posing as a Quasit trying to get someone to sign a contract.
Oh, that's cool.
And the idea here would be, again, this idea, it's an idea I love playing with, obviously, with my fiends. The idea that the devils are very cunning, and much like Jinn, right? Much like a Freet, much like a lot of the fire elemental creatures. And so what you're dealing with when you're dealing with a devil is that you have different accounts of Asmodeus's origin throughout the game, right? And in different sources, but they all know that this may not be the true origin. Like in I think it's in A Guide to Hell, the origin involves these two serpents that were entwined, and they tore each other apart, and one became Jezarian and one became Ahriman, who became Asmodeus. But then you also have the account in the Fiendish Codex, which has to do with the Asmodeus and his armies being basically a wedge against the chaos of the abyss, and ultimately staying on in order, as part of a compact, to wage war. Basically, they allow themselves to become fallen. But then you also have the account where Asmodeus is cast down for his evil. You have these conflicting versions, right? And I keep that deliberately in my campaign, because if you're going to seduce a knight to lawful evil and to say that it's okay to sign a contract with me because, look, I'm doing what's necessary to preserve everything in the way that you're doing it, you will do what's necessary to preserve things. No, you see, we're simply the other aspect, sundered from lawful good. We're really not that different. In fact, at one point we were the same thing. So you have these different methods, these different legends, one or more of which may be true, but they're used by the devils as modes of seduction to particular target audiences.
Levels of intrigue in there,
and levels of horror too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the idea of seduction as horror, right? It can be moral seduction rather than seduction of the flesh.
Lead to really awful things, which is can really have a good horror aspect to it in the game. There's nothing worse than having a fallen character. Right?
Oh yeah,
not a dead one, but a one that's fallen to the darker side. There's nothing
worse / nothing better.
Yeah, well, that's true. Sure, that gets to be fun a bit.
There's something even better if you get the whole party of characters to fall under the and to degrade themselves and
you've had that happen.
Evil.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
corrupted an entire party.
Oh, a party that after a while said that, damn, we become the evil menace of this territory.
Oh,
so we need to, So you tempt them with murder hoboing. And you get them to murder hobo everything, and then after a while they realize, damn, we are the evil menace here,
but it's not murder hoboing; it's imposing order.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they thought at first, and then when everybody fighting them, they realized, damn, maybe we are the evil ones around here. So it took a while, but then they realized. So we're going to skip these characters and roll new ones and start over again. So yeah, but that was really me, really tempting them to become murder hobo, and just presented everything like a target and kept doing it, so to speak.
So who wants to go next? I have another Underdark one.
Cool.
Which is, all right, we'll go there. We're going to go to Dungeon 85. So this one is by James Jacobs, and
oh yes,
and can really ruin your day. It can really ruin the Narwhal setting, so you got to be careful with it. But it's still
it can ruin the whole Wild Coast.
Well, it can ruin. Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right.
I thought that was a Living Greyhawk horror that happened.
Well, yeah, Living Greyhawk had its moments, right? I don't want to bash any more Living Greyhawk but Lord of the Scarlet Tide. So this one is I mean, this is an entire Underdark connection
Mhm.
under Narwhal. Now, whether you want to continue
See, there
this
you go.
or not is, but everything, and here's Narwhal, as you know, that's the map I even use in my Narwhal campaign. We ran this years ago when it first came out.
Yeah,
Board in darkness, it shuns in light. This is kind of similar. This
that
is
sounds
kind
like a. Oh, sorry.
no. This is kind of similar to what Tony Winslow wrote for Xanthoria, where there is this scarlet fungi that
Oh,
overtakes
so it's not
everything.
Scarlet Brotherhood that comes
No,
in.
there's no. Thank God,
Oh,
there's no
okay.
Scarlet Brotherhood here. No, it's basically an infestation, and everything is covered in it, and the well's
Okay.
poisoned. They're called Scarlet Children, so they're everything becomes infected with this, and including an entire Croatoan community underground. I mean, it's gross.
Yeah, they were put in place. The Croatoans were
Yeah.
originally safeguarding what had been sealed there.
Yes.
And do you remember what it was? What it was originally, the fungus?
Let's refresh my memory. It's been so long. So
It was yet again one of these
Chewbacca.
renegade druids.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
that's
a
right.
druid
It's
who'd
right. It's
gone over to worship Igwilv.
That's right. That's right. It was a
Or Zugmoy. I'm sorry,
Zugmoy. It was another crazed druid, just like in Xanthoria. It's a crazed druid who comes down here and then just starts messing up. Yeah, it's almost exact same premise as Xanthoria, as a matter of fact.
And
So,
that same druid, by the way, comes up in the Demonomicon of Igwilv article on Zugmoy.
oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
I did not know that. I remember.
So there's more detail about what happened underneath Narwhal in that article.
Well, that's good because you really, it's like, how is Narwhal not forever tainted after this? You got to just work that out, cleansing it somehow. We did it, but it is a long adventure, and just the horror aspect of everything, even yourselves can become tainted with this scarlet. There's a Bliptopoop, statue, all sorts of but it is really gross and really horrifying to have this happen to your characters and have it happen to people in the city and all, and just it was nasty. And it's another Underdark connection adventure. Now, has there been Underdark recent since then, or before then, or after then in connected to the Wild Coast? Not that I'm aware of. It's the only one.
There was something in the core Living Greyhawk adventures, and that was about it.
Core, okay.
Yeah, basically the implication was that
it's 2000.
The Blackthorn, the Blackthorn.
Blackthorn goes and connects to the Underdark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have to correct myself. I've had a drow come out of that, so I did it myself back when the Free Secret box set came out. So duh on me. Yeah. No, that's a good point because they say the depths of that are unknown. A Blackthorn. Yep. Yeah. Good point.
And it does do. And to be fair, with the I know that the burning of Narwhal was controversial. It makes more sense. It makes more sense when you find out that apparently part of that was to see the drow in particular wanted to see if the Elven Kingdom of Selene would respond to something that close to its border.
How the heck did all the drows get there?
There are drow settlements and such. It never really gets into how
outposts
concentrated
it's one of these things that just conveniently happen.
No, it's supposed to be setting up a following year plot arc, from what I understand.
Okay. Well, that
like
to
it
me
was
sounds
going
horrifying.
To be, It was going to be like where you defeated the bad and you thought it was Turishmak, but it isn't.
Oh, okay.
They're allowed to use drow, but you're not allowed to use drow in GF and G3.
Well, there you go.
But there's some horrifying aspects of things. You can scare DMs too. Yeah.
But it's like and yeah, I found some exploitable material there. But like in terms of other things that I think that we might want to look at when we're discussing horror. I mentioned earlier the cleric arising as kind of a response to Sir Fang, right?
Yep.
Well, in this case, I'm going to propose that we look at the 3.5 Lords of Madness.
Aha. Okay.
The Book of Aberrations, where it picks up on something in that much underlooked second edition book by Chris Pramis, late second edition Guide to Hell, which introduced some some orders pertaining to Saint Cuthbert, and introduced some very Greyhawk bound material in it.
Is it Guide to Hell or Paladin in Hell?
Guide to Hell. Paladin in Hell was a Monty Cook adventure for Planescape.
Okay, got it.
But one of the groups that's introduced in that book, in the Promise book, in addition to the Society of the Rosy Cross and so forth, you had the Society of the Sanctified Mind, and these were high-level Cuthbertians whose society was founded 30 years ago, when a group of mind flayers living under the mountain near Sir Jeremy's small home village attacked the town in a brain raid. Basically, the men, women, and children were either killed or taken as thralls by the Illithids. And at that point, Jeremy was already an adventuring cleric and went on a quest and founded this order, right?
Yep.
And the order's entire purpose is to hunt down aberrations, aboleths, mind flayers, and so forth. And they're introduced in Promise's book, and they're elaborated on in the Book of Aberrations. It gives you another good example, it gives you an example of a new ally of theirs. And it also has the Topaz Order, of course.
Yep.
The Holy Order of the Supernal Topaz Defenders, a Heronian group, which is similarly opposed to opposing the depredations of aberrant master races and other monstrosities. And so they trust their holy steel and divine blessing can overcome alien magic and crawling death. So they're introduced in that book as well. And there's a wealth of information in there on aboleths, mind flayers. There's some mechanical stuff. There's also a heck of a lot of lore stuff, some of it alluding to the earlier very Greyhawk specific Guide to Hell, and some of it just a little more open and pertaining to the monsters themselves.
What edition is that? Is that third? 3.5?
I think it's 3.5.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have that one. I had the Guide to Hell though, so I showed that up. Okay.
So highly recommended. If you're a fan of Guide to Hell, you'll probably enjoy
Cool.
that book.
So,
And let's bounce it back to Anna.
okay, Anna. Got something there?
Okay, I'm starting to run. Let's see here.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how about
Yeah.
we talk about the thing you made for your Patreons
Oh,
today.
okay, yes,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's do
I'm gonna
my
bring that up.
IUCN zombie
Yeah,
goats.
please.
Yeah, yeah. They are kind of an interesting. In some ways they are funny and is silly, but there is a sinister touch to it, because I want things that are, from a world building perspective, real, so to speak. So, but I wanted something that could be a comical ingredient in an adventure, but we barely got to them on my adventure during virtual GreyhawkCon. But so I presented the stats for them. But the more interesting than the stats are the background of it, and I kind of wanted to come up with something. I use many. But the empire I used was spreading out. Then they started to control vast areas, and the front line started to disappear way out into meaning they started to conquering lands, meaning it's millions of square miles of terrain, and can you think about the little hapless Iusian priest who has a evil demigod as his ruler, and who demands that he finds resources? Meaning he has two missions. One, find resources to send to the troops, like food stuff and things like that. That was one thing he was forced to do. The other thing was to control the territory, meaning he needed to make sure there were no uprisings, he could produce soldiers and stuff like that. And what Iusians do, they they send people that are kind of that you don't have to produce the necessities. You send them out to plunder and become soldiers, and if they refuse, you kill them, animate them as undeads, and then send them. and the problem is that when you run out of people, what the heck do you do then? And I realized goats are something that some inventive Iusian priest realized that, damn, there are goats around everywhere. Maybe we can animate them. first we take the meat off and most of it, and then we animate the corpse. And that way we get something that is manageable and dumb enough that we can give simple instructions like a zombie or a skeleton. And it will go around guarding the camp and guarding the settlement, and you can tell it to kill anyone who comes in sight. And it's easy manageable by Ayusian priests. And there you have the Ayusian zombie goat. Comes from that purpose, and it has some hilarious kind of things too. It's unturnable. So what happens if you turn it? It simply flops over and goes stiff, like they do, so to speak. And there are variants of this. This is just the basic Ayusian zombie goat, but there are other inventive versions of it, meaning there's some Ayusian clerics who are creative too, and they realize there's potential with this. And maybe the old one himself realized that there are potential with this, because you can easily breed thousands of these things, turn them undead and let them roam in the countryside, and they can cause all sorts of menace. And the thing is that this one doesn't do, it's a CR1 monster, so it's not for adventurers, it's not much of a nuisance. You kill them easily. They have armor class 9, so they're just dumb. They just stand there. They can jump though. That they can jump, but they can run fast, and they can climb almost anything. So that means that they can get in almost everywhere, as long as if it's not vertical and smooth, they will climb in, so to speak. So they can and but the thing is that one of them is not a problem, but many of them are. And the other nasty thing is that when you kill them, they become a poisonous mess to deal with, so to speak. And therefore, many of them are problems. And I'm going to present, there's 2 more versions of it, and then there's the Horde too, that will be coming stats the upcoming days, so to speak. So yeah.
Nice.
That's
And
awesome.
the art for this is Midjourney and my photoshopping. So that I've done so for it. So that's where the art comes from. But that's the story. Inventive, desperate Ayusian priests and the tyranny of the Empire of Ayus have led to, and his powers have led to, this menace of undead goats causing problems.
And I would say this is truly an example of why Anna is GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and I have
Pretty
the other one
sick.
is the
Pretty sick.
eye of the old one is another version of this that is
Nice.
coming. Yep, I'm not going to spill the details because it's kind of, and that one came from when I did let Midjourney. I set Midjourney to create undead zombie goats. I got one that was simply adorable and horrifying at the same time. So I was like, oh damn, I need to make this into a monster, and so I created in a special Ayusian spell, the eye of the old one. And I combined that with the zombie goat, and now it can get really interesting. So yeah.
It's really disturbing, Anna.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a horrors of yeah. It's a cute, comical but serious, nasty horror kind of thing that can be, and it could be, one of them is more funny. Imagine 100 and you get into problems. Yeah.
Well, see, that's one of the other keys I was going to mention. To horror is there's at times a very thin line between humor and horror.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
True.
You know, the thing looks so cute, and until it rips off your arm and you're spewing blood in every direction, and then it's no longer quite so funny.
Yep. Yeah. So this is my contribution to funny, so to speak. So it's kind of a
It's cool.
And one last thing I desperately needed to tie in was because I know that Mr. Holian will be hunting me down if I don't mention these things. There's an entire section of the Great Kingdom, right, or with former Great Kingdom, that you have, particularly the shores of the Solnar Ocean, right? And here I think we want to mention the, just to single out a few things in rapid succession, the Asperty Isles has the Cauldron of Night, which is of course where the Nalex Overking's throne was made from there. You have a fading land in the Gulf Cliffs called the Blood Obelisk, which is a land of black dust and ash. A little pocket universe with the titular obelisk in it. That would be in the Gulf Cliffs.
I'm right here.
Up there.
There it is. Right on it. Blood Obelisk.
The obelisk itself is dedicated, of course, to Hextor, because of course it would be. But it's a fading land devoted to a Hextorian obelisk. And then, of course, you have the in the same vicinity, you have the Isle of Lost Souls. And the Isle of Lost Souls brings us back to something that's near and dear to my heart, and I know, Anna, you're pretty fond of it as well. I'm going to quote from Paul Luby's little piece on the WotC site, back when they still had the Great Living Greyhawk background material. The tale of this isle is bound up with the malign legacy of the ancient Earthland, an insidious venom that poisoned the glorious dream of Aerdi and begat the tyrannous reign of the Nalex dynasty. The Earthland were ancient mystics and sorcerers who, instead of seeing death as part of the natural cycle of the world, sought to master it, and in doing so, escape it. With their unholy powers, they enslaved their own people and forged for themselves a realm centered on the valley of the River Trask in what is now northern Aerdi. The Earthland set their slaves to build great ziggurats and rewarded the unfortunate thralls for their labors by sacrificing them to dark forces. They trafficked with fiends and vile worms and made war upon the Ulv, most notably the Ulv of the City of Summer Stars. For centuries, these necromancers of the Trask reigned unchallenged, spreading death and terror throughout the lands of the East. Until the coming of the Aerdi, that is.
Oh.
And then, of course, this was one of those last stands. It was the domain where, as it mentions, the bloody and terrible war against the Earthland was waged. And now the Causeway of Fiends, that path of enormous granite slabs spanning the narrow strait linking the island to the mainland, goes there. And at certain times, fiends are known to wander. Certain times of year and during certain astronomical phenomena, fiends are known to wander those things. And people attempt to, sometimes some power mad people attempt to take those stones and use them for their own ends. But of course, horrible things happen to them. So it has this whole history of Earthland and fiendish connection. And of course, the Animus priest of Rinloru, Delglath, apparently has more than a little bit of an interest in that. As it mentions here, he was so happy with becoming an Animus that he abandoned the worship of Erythnol and embraced the dark church of Nurl, and is now seeking to perfect his fief, cleansing it of life that so offends his new master.
In Rinloru, yeah.
So it ties in nicely.
Oh, it's awesome. Yep.
That's one of the great locations, and I think underutilized in a lot of campaigns.
And if you want to fight an undead invasion, Rinloru is a perfect, awesome place to do it. But I guess the guys that are actually fighting it are not much better than.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're two evil sides battling it out who are overpowered, so to speak.
And I think that's a great example of that sort of idea, where again you have gradations of evil. As I've suggested, there's a difference between, say, an Amadeo gutworm, which is another one of my little favorite beasties, or some sort of other parasite. There's a difference between that and an orc, and there's a difference between that and you go up a notch, and you keep going up a notch, and then you get into the area of, well, you got this crazy Animus, and he's seeking to convert everyone to the being undead and cleanse them of life. And on the other hand, you have these other guys who aren't very nice either. But which one? But maybe you're going to be wanting to help the not so nice guys against crazy wants to cleanse the world of all life guy. Maybe it's a choice of the lesser evil or the devil,
Yeah.
And just a question of how much you can trust the devil, But that's a cool. I just wanted to throw that out there, Gary. I had that on my short list, and Gary was like, "Yeah, you have to mention this, man." And I'm like, "You're right. That's definitely worth it." And of course, Mar Castle I was going to mention is another kind of great example. I'd mentioned Gothic horror, right? Yeah. The idea of this old Sewell family that after the Mages of Power disappear, just seal themselves in certain levels of their castle and presumably, if they have offspring, we can imagine where those offspring come from. And they follow Uncle, an unnamed figure in the warship of Y, who I believe on one of the Paizo forums, Rob Kuntz suggested that Y was actually Yog Sothoth from the myth
Oh,
Cthulhu.
really?
So yeah, and I mean, the place itself, I mean, it's so full of stuff. There's the Warlocks Walk adventure, which is one of the levels of it's where the family members were tested to see if they were worthy, right? And it was in one of the Oath journals in a 3.5 conversion, I think. But he also published it briefly on Pied Piper Publishing in an AD&D version. And there are some differences between the two texts, but it's full of all these kinds of things with, you know, hags in disguise and all kinds of kind of mental mysteries. Very much a nice expansion of the stuff you found in Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure, and then the Mar Castle that appeared as a kind of sequel in Dungeon Magazine. And I would argue, yeah, there you go, a crazy Sewell family with a family tree whose branches increasingly diminish, setting up shop and pursuing their worship of an eldritch abomination. Yeah, that's pretty much a nice horror bit there.
Yeah,
definitely sounds it. Cool. So a couple quickies here from me. Some ideas on variances of originals for horror. I mean, you got Sakatha and Tomb of the Lizard King, so you got a
Absolutely.
you got a vampiric Lizard King, right? Have him go out and minionize some of the maybe NPCs or some of the party. Turn them in, you know, because it really doesn't have a bunch of servants, you know, unlike Strahd does and Ravenloft has tons of them. But that could be an interesting little twist on as far as a horror aspect goes. It's a really nasty adventure. So another, oh, cool. Very cool, Casey. Yeah, it's a great adventure on my wall of fame. The other one, which you got to watch go in there too. I know guys like, well, you rip people's tongues out anyway with the mongrels. It's kind of a comical thing when you think, you know, hideously comical. Take Marquesa and have her capture someone, and then just I wouldn't go into the graphic nature of it.
Yeah, but then you come the problem when you take as a DM, when you take the characters and make them captives, that's when it can.
I understand
really,
that.
Yeah, it's a
take
really
an NPC
tricky,
and don't even go over the details of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But it's something you should kind of play without ever doing, so to speak. That's
you don't
my
have to go into the
advice.
graphic details. Yeah, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
Is, but that's got a real horror aspect to it.
Hint to it, play with it, but never do it, so to speak. That's
Right.
my advice when it comes to going that way,
Yeah.
because you don't want to ever take away player agency, meaning
Right.
the player should have some influence over what happens and have a
I'm not saying just go take.
No,
but
in the course
exactly.
of gameplay, I'm not saying to you. I'm saying it generally
In
as a general advice, so to speak. So yeah.
And there's also, I would suggest, a way to lean into both player agency and the idea of something unfortunate would be, there was an instance when one of my characters, rather infamously now, got infected by an eldritch abomination, and it began altering him. And I said, you know, here are two options. We can start you with a new character right now, or we can play this out until your character is no longer able completely to function. And what we're going to do is, if you're amenable, and he said, oh, that'd be great. And I was like, you and I are going to come up with some tables, and we're going to roll on them periodically after you make a wisdom save. And if you fail the wisdom save, and your chances of failing the wisdom save are going to deteriorate over time, your chances of making the wisdom save, rather, are going to deteriorate over time. You're going to start doing inexplicable stuff like singing hymns to the unknowable nothingness that shall consume us all in the middle of like a stealth mission, and stuff like that. Basically, you're going to start, and if you're willing to do this. And he said, absolutely. So it became a role-playing exercise for the player, where the player is part of the time he's normal, he's his old self, and then the rest of the time he's like wallowing in mud and praying to a fountain, or singing the praises of the Dark One who comes and waits for us in the shadows. And it became this glorious thing where the players didn't know what to do next. The player was having a grand time with it. And I was like, holy Moses, I don't know what I unleashed here, but this is gold. There was that, or there's the idea of if you do a switcheroo, talk it through with a player in advance. Where I had a doppelganger was impersonating. The players later in the same session freed the character, right? But they didn't realize this. But the person who'd been thrown into the cages with them after being separated was in fact a doppelganger who was imitating one of the PCs.
I like that.
I had the player go ahead and role play the doppelganger.
Oh wow.
And they are to this day they curse me for that, and they curse her, and while saying, "Damn, that was good role playing," because you totally had us convinced and telling you stuff that we shouldn't have. So there are ways to do that, and it kind of you just don't want to overdo it, and you want to make sure your players are cool with it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And that they're mature and you know they're enough. There's enough maturity and ability. I'm not saying I'm saying players have different things that they're good at, right? And so someone who's really good at the math and the numbers crunching, etc., might not be good at role playing that particular thing. So just judge your player, and if you want to try something like that, reach out to them, but do it cautiously and do it in such a way where it might mess with the other players, but it's not going to rob anyone of their agency or their enjoyment.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. So yeah.
So I got one last one. This is currently going on in my campaign in Hardby. One of the characters, I'm not going to say who, recently was killed, and is coming back to seek revenge on those that killed him, but also sees that the party did not do anything to protect them, so is coming after them too, and that's turning your player character into a revenant.
Well, there you go.
The Undead Stalker type comes back from the grave, and I've got this on a long-term plot, so this thing can only last so long in rules, but I've extended this. So the undead corpse or visage of this character has already been seen on a ship, but will be seen, and that's a long-term plot arc. Yep. So wonderful thing there. A little bit of minor bit of comedy mixed in with that horror aspect there, but got to have a little bit of that. So Anna, what do you got? You got anything else you want to bring up here? I know we've cranked through some good stuff so far, which is great.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of bases, but I think to me it's like, don't mix too many evils in one campaign. I'm afraid I'm doing that now, meaning keep the villains at least reasonably the same, so to speak, and which is something I'm saying that because I need to pinch my arm here so I don't overdo it in my current campaign. So yeah,
it's just like anything. DMing's a balance.
Well, yeah, exactly.
You find your balance. Yeah.
Yep.
You keep on. I'm constantly.
That was more advice to myself, so to speak.
Balancing things. Yeah. You
try to advise myself. So yeah, I put rules that only. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say I implement rules in my campaign that are not for the players; they're just for me, so to speak. So DM rules. I have a special section of DM rules, meaning how do gods work and stuff like that. So that is just for me to set my limits, so I can know how to adjudicate things in the game, so to speak. So I have a section of DM rules that have nothing to do with the characters really, or
okay.
Yeah.
And see, one of the things I think that's key to keep in mind with that. And I do it too. I do cut material constantly in my campaign, not as much as I would for a one-shot. But I want to keep the focus on, once the players figure out the path that they're on and a big bad guy is on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
You want that big bad guy to have some atmosphere of mystery and terror, rising terror about him. So it's like basically they encounter minions of this being that they may not even realize are minions, or they foil plots that they only later realize this was connected to this other thing. so that it slowly builds up to,
Interesting.
there's a crescendoing kind of effect where at the end it's like, here is the source of all these woes, and we're now sufficiently high level where we can, like I said, and again, you want to be careful about killing off something that's a cosmic principle or whatnot as well. Maybe they seal him off or banish him. I mean, think about it. How often does Sauron actually appear in Lord of the Rings?
Only in the beginning, in the initial, in the
like
early,
in the novel itself, it's like it's always some sign of his or some minion of his. And that can be just as horrifying. Like, one of the things that frightened me most when I was a kid, and still does, would be the mouth of Sauron.
Oh yeah.
And the way he's described, where he had a name, but no one remembers it, including himself.
Yeah.
And he exists purely as kind of an extension, a puppet, really. And just the idea of that, when I read it as a kid, just freaked the hell out of me. And still does. Just the idea that you could be reduced to no more. You don't even know your own name. You can't even remember it.
Sorry.
Little details like that.
Cool.
And I was going to give one last example, by the way, of my building effect. Think about the dwarves when they're in the mines of Moria, or when the Fellowship is in the mines of Moria and they're reading the fate of the former
Balin.
Yeah, exactly. You're going through this book, and it's just there coming drums in the deep.
Oh, that's
and then you have
awesome.
the inciting incident, which would be making a noise, and then you have the slow approaching and drumming, mounting, and then ultimately you have for that level, if you will, the big boss, the Balrog reveal. And it's just the way that it slowly builds up the terror. At least to me, it's terror. It's definitely a horrific scene. There are moments in Tolkien, I think, that touch on horror, just as there are moments in Robert E. Howard that touch on horror.
We have. I have one more monster I use a monster that I have. It's the skull tree. And it's not a monster it's a lingering monster. Is that it's the Iusian priests have, they animate goats to become undead to be kind of immediate servants and guard posts and stuff. But what do Ius do to lay claim to territory long term? Meaning over the next decade and century and stuff. He plants skulls with special seeds that grows in the ground and they come up, so to speak. And that is the Iusian skull tree. And that's another monster I have. And that's a monster that is not something you go out and fight in that sense. It's more like a menace or a trap or something. So I haven't fully studied it out yet. It's a concept that I'm working on.
What freaked me out when I was, 13 years old, was the hangman tree and the dead tree in the Excalibur, the movie. And then the raven plucks the eye out of one of the corpses and stuff. I was like, ugh. The hangman tree freaked me out.
My skull tree will probably be the worst monster you can imagine if you have a stronghold like a castle or something like that, and you start realize they're starting to appear in the terrain around it. That's when you can have a problem.
Really nasty. Anything else you'd like to bring up, Les, as we've gotten through a lot of horror ideas and creatures and locations? It's been fun
I told Baldrin the other night, and I told you that we can always do more of it later. We can do Return to the Horrors of Greyhawk, Expedition to the Horrors of Greyhawk, Bride of the Horrors of Greyhawk. So there's a lot more. We haven't really gone too much into Vecna and Cass. And you have the potential for witch hunting in Keoland, and you have all kinds of things that we could touch. Sword, some of the wraith figures, some of the sword wraiths, and some of the other creatures that were introduced in the Greyhawk Monsters Compendium. We've got lots of stuff that we can come back to.
The horror of Child's Play. It's funny.
That is true, Antiquitous. That is
really
so
true. Lots and lots of horrors. And I'm doing this just for David Leonard's purpose. Maybe I can't. And then you also have the horror in the holes there. Okay, Dave. I pulled my Casey for the day there. All right. So.
Oh, and I should mention, actually, since Mike's not around, I think it was last year. Mike had a really good Halloween era or period blog entry on horrors.
Yep.
Like Horrible Lands of Greyhawk or something, which was really nice. I recommend that. And with David Leonard, I can't recommend enough. A lot of his histories are really good, and when you read them and read between the lines, you can find some nice elements to riff on for horror there.
There's more to discuss. Absolutely, we just touched the surface and wanted to get the Halloween spirit kicked off here.
Mm-hmm.
Said I have my Halloween themed game only in 2 Saturdays. Just doing it a little early.
So looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast because I got new terrain coming. I got a whole new building from that Mike Disney created with Jeremy from Gamescape 3D, the Witch's Hut for the Overgord. So we got some cool things coming, and of course we'll see him. We'll see him in a couple Saturdays. So all right, shout outs. Les, what's going on with you? What do you got going on,
man?
After GreyhawkCon,
I'm recovering from GreyhawkCon.
Yes.
Had a great time. Both tables were full. Both tables we got done under the recommended the time that we had limit, and we had a great time. I really love my players. I just want to say that you guys were great. If you're listening, the ones of you that are listening, and I also want to. Got to play in 2 of Alan Grohe's games. Curiously, kind of one of them was definitely horror themed. Eric Mona's River of Blood. So it had the girls being carried off by the Blue Men. So yeah, that was creepy and fun. And let's see, what else have I been doing? Recovering from that. Going to restart my campaign shortly because it's been on hiatus for a little bit. We've got. I've got some other stuff that I'm working on. I should have some material coming up, either on Cannon Fire, and on Cannon Fire and or the Oath Journal before too long. And got more material that I'm working on in addition to that. And I'm hopefully going to be working on another one shot to be done before the end of the year.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, and I'll try and keep everyone posted on that because I think. I'm going to try to do a mix of some of my regular players with some Cannon Fire folks and see how it turns out. And I want to go ahead and keep everyone informed so they can hop into that table and see what happens.
Awesome. Very cool. I really appreciate you coming up with the idea tonight and also bringing out a lot of stuff, which is really always cool. Things like I said, the highlight of my night was this Yashir thing. I was like, what the hell is that? I was like, oh my gosh, that thing's nasty and pretty cool.
Oh, and I'm going to throw something out there into chat.
Mm-hmm.
This is a piece. If you have access to Facebook, it's on there. It's a piece that Rob Kuntz published originally in a zine a few years back. Then in 2012, I think he posted it, or 2019, he posted it on Facebook. It is called Advent of the Elder Ones, Mythos versus Man in the Lake Geneva Original Campaign, 1973 through 76.
Wow.
And it's an essay going over the influences of H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith on the original campaign. So I'm going to try and post the link to that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wow.
There we go.
That is cool. That goes way back. Nice. We appreciate it, Leslie.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you for the convention and for being such a stalwart of the community.
No
and
problem.
Anna, for your massive contributions, ranging from your glorious map to your rather unsettling goats.
Oh my gosh! And now the tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But you only seen the first goat. There's a couple of more.
Well, life isn't it just isn't a party if you only have one goat.
Yes.
Exactly. You have to have lots of them. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Santa, what's going on with you?
Well, yeah, I'm also recovering from Greyhawk Con. It took a couple of days to, so today is the first day I really feel like I'm back in action again, so to speak. So thank you everyone for all the wonderful comments, and I've had so many people reaching out everywhere, and so thank you to everyone who participated in the convention and made it so, and all my players and stuff I had in my game that was really helping me to push the story through. And even if I normally don't like con style games, you made it happen, and you made it fun, and so that was so actually and all the people that came and watched, and I had like I have over 200 unique viewers, and I think average about 75 or something like that. So it was crazy. So you kind of, a lot of people have convinced me now, and my players seems to be in on it too, that we're going to start streaming our regular games. That is, we are working towards making that happen, so to speak.
Okay.
So it will not be con-style games. So we have to look into the practicalities and make sure that all my players are in on it, so to speak. So we have it. So that is something that we'll work on. And on Friday there will be I will do a mapping stream on Friday. We haven't figured out the details and stuff yet, so what I will work on and anything, but that something will come on that one. So on Friday. And then I have another little pet project that has been sitting in a while that I'm going to do real quick. I'm going to do a quick map of Shieldlands before the war with the provinces. That's Joe Block. He kind of asked around, requested it, and it was good because it's on my to-do list. So I'm going to, hopefully I can do that this week, because that was something I did a while ago, and I listed them and just got them from the Living Greyhawk material, and I tweaked them a little bit because there seems to be a discrepancy. Some sources say 21 provinces, and some of them list like 23 or 24. So I will, yeah. So it's kind of a bit, but it's a little bit contradicting sources. So I try to nail them down and tweak them a bit. So I'm going to take my version of Shieldlands pre-war, so to speak. I put the borders are on the map, but no names. So I'm thinking about, and the names, the map is so small that you can't squeeze all the names in there. So what I will do is that I will make kind of a vectorized map that is based on its with putting the names in there, and so we have it as a reference, because I want it as a reference too. So that is something that I want to do, and some more heraldry, of course, and also to start putting up the to plan and detail how what will be included in the first heraldry compendium. That is the big issue too, and also the formats and stuff. So I will work a little bit with the styling and what should be included and stuff, and have something coming out soon on the idea of it, so to speak, and let my top patrons have an input and tell me what they like and what they don't like, and so on. So we can have a little bit of a discussion and nail that down in hopefully within a couple of weeks we should have so I can start working on the heraldry compendium. And also I will reach out to some people and see if we can get the 598 Atlas started too. That's the other ones, to get that one up and running, so we can have that one coming out later this fall. So those are and also my custom map tier patrons. I'm starting to reach out to a couple of you today. I got a couple of responses. We set up some video meetings, and we can get those projects underway too. So that's basically what's going on. Yep.
Awesome. All right, I'll go through this pretty quickly. 3 more streams this week. Nothing on Saturday night though. We are good. I don't. There's a wrong button the first wrong button of the night. I hit the Tim thing by accident. So ripping tongues out. All right, tomorrow night, Servants of the Sun ties into Altamira. This occurs right as the joust is taking place. It starts. Yes, I hit that wrong button. Adventure number 974. And they'll be heading south almost to the Principality of Ulick border to some old ruins. And don't want to ruin it for everyone, but there you go. There's the terrain set up. There are Order of Ulick and Altamira forces hold up in a defensive position, and the Windborn mercenary group will go basically to see if they can assist or relieve them. There is Aryan, who never has won a joust fight. He lost both of his. That's Walt's character. He's part of that group, And Juan Carlos's daughter Cassandra is part of that group too. So there she is, right next to him. They're both going on this adventure. Probably a one-shotter tomorrow night. There you go. And that's Servants of the Sun. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Living Greyhawk on wall. Creighton Broadhurst and the other Brits will be here to discuss that and maybe some other things. Looking for a interesting discussion. First time Creighton's ever been on, so really excited about this discussion.
Yeah.
Yep, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bright and early for some of you on the West Coast, but sorry about that. But this is the time that works for everyone, for them. So there will be no Legends and Lore next Wednesday. Sorry, I got a dinner thing I cannot get out of. So this kind of works. Just gets that Living Greyhawk episode here that'll take up next Wednesday. My apologies for not being able to do that.
Yep.
So, and then Sunday, so we're going to look into, to help those with who don't know, there's a lot of Dungeon Magazine adventures that are actually in Greyhawk.
Yeah. There.
A lot. And,
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to highlight some of them, talk about a bunch. I think that I have Dungeon 10 up or 13, with the Ruins of Noel Dares in that, which is on Animus map.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of good ones, and there's one or two. There's a reference place to find a lot of them, and know that they're Greyhawk. And there's some that, like, I saw someone in chat said that they were going to take the Mistmore and convert that one. I saw that earlier. I took the Mirror of Dead Men from Dungeon, that series, and put that in Greyhawk, and I'll show where I did that. And Tim may, if Tim comes on, I think he is, he may go over some of the White Dwarf magazine ones that he's put into a Greyhawk. Yep, Norcamp. So we'll talk about a lot of those to help you with Greyhawk campaign development, and that'll be on Sunday. All right, that's what's going on in the world. Les and Anna, thank you so very much for another really great show.
Oh, thank
And
you, and
let's-
thank you
thank
to
you.
everyone in chat who came in and
Definitely.
helped us. Yep.
And of course, I forgot one thing. Whoops, another wrong button. Gosh,
Oh, there you
damn.
go. Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Appropriate today. Yep.
Twice. Sorry.
Yep.
2 weeks from Saturday. How could I forget? Our Prophecy of the Overgourd, this year's Halloween special with Mike Disney's Overgourd, the Slav Squad, and special guest AJ from Winter's Tales, who was on DM's Roundtable discussion, to the list of ladies added, and Josh. So I know Josh isn't on tonight, but yes, it'll be an Overgourd adventure, and that'll be 2 Saturdays. That'll be on the 15th. At 6 p.m. EDT. So there you go. Now we're done there. All right, I'm going to do the giveaway. Get your choice of any 2 of these. If you're out of the U.S. or whatever, I have Troller Games digital gift certificates too. UK 1, 2, 3, B6, C2, X9, CM3. Get your choice of 2. So there you go. All right, closing it out. Last call. You got 10 seconds here to sign up. So. No problem, Celtic. Hey, it's all good. It's all good. All right. Old school goodness. Try to. All right, here we go. Go close this out. If I hit the right buttons. The winner tonight, closing it out, is Rolvalgix. Congrats. You tell me what 2 you want from this group. My suggestion is UK2 and UK3 to Sentinel and the Gauntlet, because they're really good together. I mean, you have to, it's a 2-parter. But you let me know what 2, and then we'll go over that. And I'm assuming you're still on, Revalgix, right? You in chat? We got to be on. Yeah, you're still on. I know you just saw you in chat. So I don't know who to raid into tonight. I think I'm going to raid into Dr. Faust. I think we're raiding into him. He's painting up something nice. This Wednesday night, I got like 15 to 20 streams on. But we're reading to Dr. Faust, see what he's painting up tonight. He's always on the stream doing some commentary, which is cool. Once again, Les, thanks a lot.
Hey, no problem. Always my pleasure.
Great one. Anna, thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow night, 7:30. So see you Thursday night, Saturday morning, Sunday evening. And everyone have a great night. Thanks a lot. And we kick off normal stream schedule virtual GrowdCon. All right. See you all soon. Hey, Tom. All right. Gonna read into Dr. Faust. He's a great painter. Yes, of course. Let's see if we can get like over 80. There we go. Easily. 88.
Wow.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow night. Awesome.
Let's see. 89.
Great. It's not.
Yep.
All right, good. It's not letting me get over there. That's weird.
My chat and stuff popped over, so